We've got a tiny lucky window here where it's going to be above freezing for a few days. And so I'm going to try to rush through and get a bunch of nursery work done. What I'm working on right now, and I thought I would share some notes with folks, I've got these beautiful Ashworth bur oak seeds that I collected this fall that have sprouted. They were meant to be dormant for the winter and be able to be planted in air prune boxes in the spring, but since they're waking up, I have to address their needs now. I thought it'd be an opportunity to grab some shots as I do the work of creating a space for air prune boxes, establishing them, filling them, getting these planted out, and some thoughts around mulching them for the winter. I have not planted nursery seed into air prune boxes in the fall to overwinter in place yet. These are going to make it need to happen. So I figured I would document it for my own review later, get feedback from other folks. I'd love to hear if you've planted tree seeds in air prune boxes in the fall in a cold climate. How did it work? So kind of specific video here, but hopefully compelling for folks to watch for those who are interested. I normally store my seeds in these folding crates. You can see oak, Ashworth, little note there, I store them in the root cellar. And normally they'll remain dormant for the winter. Chestnuts and hazels do a good job. I've talked about how I do this and go through it in some other videos, so I'll look at that, or I'll link that here. Not all of them are doing it, but if they're starting to sprout now, they have to find their home in the earth. Like, that's a really good example. If I left that the whole winter, there's no way that that would survive in the spring. The taproot would be all the way down to the bottom, spun around a bunch of times. So these all have to find homes. These are another type of bur oak that I found. Oy, 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 oy. Yep, they need to get planted. The chicken yard has some crates of compost just for this purpose. We try to stay ahead of our own needs and do this sort of work when we can. And so we've got all these crates with decently finished compost, fine enough to plant tree seeds into. So we'll be able to fill the boxes with a little bit of wood chip on the bottom, mainly this nice compost, and then some finished seed starting mix on the top. So I'm going to put in maybe 9 of these in the back of the truck. It's awesome how many layers of function there are in this system. By stacking these finished compost crates, we can hold back the leaves and make the boundaries of a compost pile, and then in moving them, the hens can go in and work and find all the worms and the sprouts that are down in there. So layers of value that happen in systems like this over and over. The wheelbarrow, we got a shovel, we got a hay fork. Yep, under the shovel. Some leaf bags to sheet mulch underneath the air prune boxes. 12 crates of nicely aged, decently aged woody compost to fill the air prune boxes. Some bricks to help loft them off the ground. Our seeds and some hand tools. I think I've got everything. It's funny to have to load up like this to literally drive next door. This is up our neighbor's driveway, but this is probably 1,000 pounds of stuff. So over at our neighbor's, we've got our beautiful shared pond space that's starting to seize up for the winter. And then to the north of it, slightly downslope, where these beds, they got pretty weedy. They grew a little bit of corn, a little bit of celery and some other crops, but very, very wet, very weedy. And so what I think I'd like to do is actually set up air prune boxes on the weediest parts of these beds, like in here and in there, and maybe one here. And so this way we can reclaim the space. We'll sheet mulch a bit. I am going to smooth out the soil just to the east of this autumn olive, cultivar autumn olive. I can prune that back next season as it starts to leaf out, but that would cast shade to the east in the late day, which should not be problematic for 2 air prune boxes right here. So I'm going to start with getting the earth a little bit flattened out so I can sheet mulch it. Just a little bit of earthwork to get it somewhat flatter. We had air prune boxes here a few years ago, and we used these bricks on the ground to prop them off of the ground. So I'm going to snag a few from here. The air prune boxes in this area did their work, and they are gone, and the beds are really nicely developed. So we'll grab some infrastructure from here to repeat that design in a new spot. This was where we had our air prune boxes this last growing season. I shared that in detail in another video about our chestnut harvest, seedling harvest from these boxes. I'm going to, for now, use the wheelbarrow to, sorry, I'm out of breath because I'm going uphill with the wheelbarrow. I'm going to take the bottom course, probably 2 of them, maybe 3 if I can fit it, and a fair bit of hay to mulch around them. If I can lay out the bottom course first, then I can come up with the truck and load in the caps and the other parts and drive them back over. Set up with bricks underneath. Probably would be better to be more thorough with this. I don't know that I have the time. I think it'll all settle, and even if it pitches, we can lift it a little with a few people and prop it up in the spring, but I need to move forward for now. In an ideal world, this would have been all leveled and nice back in the summer, and it'd be much easier to put this on, but let's see how it goes. This box has the riser added. That's this piece. So we've got the mesh on the bottom that does the air pruning work, and the riser to give a little bit more depth of soil. I need to get these last little bits out of here. I don't think voles can get through that, but just to be on the safe side. So I'll clean that up. This will be about a 10-inch deep box. I'll get it filled a little more and then plant this really, really densely with some bur oaks. Same approach for that box over there. Put a riser on, more compost from the chicken yard, plant densely, and then more compost on top to get them in. This part is gonna take a little moment. So we've got some nice bur oaks on the right. I feel like that's gonna go into this box. And then I'm gonna go through the Ashworth and select for the ones that have the longest roots first and see where that gets me as far as filling these. Some of them are dormant. They can maybe wait, hopefully till spring, or for another time. I suspect this will fill more than one box. This will very, very thoroughly fill this box. Let me get to it. I don't have a tripod, otherwise I'd show the process, but I basically will pinch roots if they're very long. If they're much longer than this, like so, I will take the root and pinch it off. Be nice to snip it, and I have pruners so I can do that. I want them about that long, not much longer. And there are 10 right in this corner. You can see I've got them on that much spacing, whatever that is in metric or imperial. Tight. Lesson very much learned, hopefully. The bur oak type of acorn, this is not the move. I'm not supposed to harvest them in the fall and try to store them in the root cellar. These all should have been planted while they were asleep. I think they'll be fine, but all the twists and turns and all that lankiness is not ideal. The roots of these trees should not be doing loop-de-loops to get the ball rolling. So harvesting of fall sprouting white oak family, bur oak family seed definitely need to be planted in the fall as they come in. That container is planted. I'm going to look at the timestamp of this shot and the last one. That will tell me how many minutes it took for me to do this. It's a little sloppy, a little loose how I did it, but I think it should work out okay so long as things don't freeze too solid too quickly. Probably 300 trees in there. Very much a question, how will this perform for next year? So I'm going to get one more crate of compost on top, then a very nice loose mulch, then the cage, then the cap for the cage, a good marking on the outside of this with my listo pen of what it is, and this one should be done. As time allows, I'll bring more leaf bags and hay to bank around the outside of this box, but I will trust that these are cold hardy seeds, and we shall see what happens in the spring. So on to the next one. Each of the crates that we use are roughly 10 gallons, and one of them filled up was a nice amount to cover all these seeds. So about 10 gallons or 2 5-gallon buckets worth of mulch. This is compost / mulch. I'll get a little more hay on top, but I'm going to wait till I have the cap on there so I can drop the hay in and it's caught. And then I need to make 100% sure there are no ways voles that can get in, and then I should be able to walk away from this thing. And it's interesting to me, what prompted this project in the first place was finding a few Ashworth bur oak that had sprouted, but then as I went through the crate, there's about 120 that went into about half of this box. The rest of this crate is still pretty dormant. I think it would be a fool's move for me to assume that they're just going to stay dormant all winter. They're going to do this as they go. So, Sasha's calling for Stanley. I'm going to plant out the other ones that I find that have sprouted and then fill the rest of the box with sleeping acorns that I'm assuming will wake up. And sooner than later, I'd like to establish another box right next to it and put the rest of them in. The mulch that was peaked in the middle, once the cage is on top, can be spread out. And the nice part is that the design of the cage is such that the wood holds in more material. So now I can backfill with hay and have it work out. Some things I definitely would have done differently. Would have come out with a handsaw or some loppers. This autumn olive should have been cut before I set this up, because now the cap is bumping into it. For now, that's okay. I'll just come back tomorrow with a handsaw and cut it and get the final cap over this. But if I left it open like this for the winter, voles would certainly eat everything in there. And I think what I want to do, I want to set up some more of these, but instead of just relying on these bricks that are point loaded, these bricks here are what are keeping the bottom of this lofted off the ground. This is such a wet site, and I feel like they are going to sink in. I can almost anticipate that being an issue. I think in the spring we'll have to come out with a few folks, slide some boards under these. One person lifts and another person slides in actual props for the season. I'm going to cut a bunch of 2-foot flat boards of locust offcuts. The rest of these that get set up will have boards underneath them. 2, 3, or 4 of them, maybe some bricks on top of the boards, so we got some better footers to not sink into the muck. Other than that, I think this should be fine. Last little bit is to put in the hay and put on the caps. Fingers crossed, some fall planting of acorns will survive our Zone 5B winter. Remaining work to be done. The mulch in there is fine enough. Tomorrow I think I'll get a round bale of hay. I'm going to buy some square bales for our chickens for their deep litter method. Some more hay all against this would be very, very reasonable. I'm going to probably expect it to freeze solid in there during January, February, and then thaw out in the spring. We will certainly share updates on how this works. There's room out here to lay out 1, 2, probably 3, 4. There's a couple more nice spaces for air prune boxes to be set up. So I'll chip away at doing that. I don't think I'm going to plant more into them until the spring. That formula I know works well. And this is a question mark. Have you had great success in a place that is quite cold in the winter, -20 Fahrenheit, approachable without snow covered? Have you planted seeds in air prune boxes and had good success? If so, what types of seeds? Let's share notes. Let's learn together on all this, and I'll share more as this unfolds. This one's done. That one gets the cap, and then I'm heading in for dinner. Thanks for watching.